Hi, I'm Matthew Lapp, host of Matthew Lapp Train Guy segment show. Also today in this segment, I'm at the Pioneer Park Historical Complex in Rhinelander, Wisconsin. The Pioneer Park Historical Complex is located on Martin Lynch Drive and is in Pioneer Park. And if you're looking for the museum, it'll be in the park just across from a tennis court in the east and is open if you just check the web about that. And also, admission to the museum is free. Also, the Pioneer Park Historical Complex was founded in 1932 as the Rhinelander Logging Museum. It's changed from beside the paper mill to its current location at Pioneer Park in 1954. And also, it has a lot of history on logging, and it is a true to life replica of a lumber camp from the 1870s. It features logging camp, antique sawmill, outboard motors, antique fire trucks, rural schoolhouse, and some railroad displays such as a logging car, a steam locomotive from the Thunder Lake Logging Company, a caboose from the Soo Line, and also a passenger car from the Flint and Pere Marquette, and also a depot from the Soo Line as well. Okay, you can see right here is a switch stand that I think was used by, it doesn't say on this lock, but I'm going to say was used by the Chicago Northwestern all those years ago, and now here it is today next to the caboose and with the sign telling you some history about it. And yeah. Okay, here is another switch stand next to the passenger coach, and also it has a sign telling you some history about it. And also, I think this one was also used by the Chicago Northwestern Railroad. Yeah, we can't move it because they have this locked in place. But now, here it is today on display. Here's another switch stand, and also it's beside the steam locomotive. And I believe this was used by the Chicago Northwestern. It has all the information about the steam engine. And I do believe this is also another Chicago Northwestern, or maybe it's a Soo Line or whatever it could be. Let's go look at some more, shall we? Okay, here's another switch stand that appears to have built probably in 1924. And I think this one was owned by the Soo Line years ago. And now here it is today next to the tracks, and this is just a casual looking switch stand as well. Here's another switch stand right here, and this one tells you some history about this outhouse behind me. It says it was built by the Soo Line in 1892 for Hayford Junction Station, which is 12 miles west of town, and was used there till 1991 when it was moved here and was restored by Eagle Scouts. And yeah, here this one is preserved today. Okay, here are two more switch stands that are just beside the depot, and I think this one may have been used by the Soo Line or the Chicago Northwestern, as well as this one, wherever they could have came from. And now here they are preserved today, and looks like you can also move it from one spot to another. And I think you can do the same with this. Indeed you can. It's just like how you would have back in the day. Okay, you can see right here is a maintenance MOW flatbed, and also this flatbed was used to carry ties, ballast, and tools and hardware that were used for railroad lines. And now this right here is used as display here at the Pioneer Park Historical Complex in Rhinelander, Wisconsin. What you see right behind me is Soo Line 573. Soo Line 573 was built by the Duluth, South Shore, and Atlantic Railroad shops in Marquette, Michigan in 1913 and is a wooden caboose. This caboose was originally built for the Duluth, South Shore, and Atlantic Railroad, and it also carried this number when it was used by that railroad. Also, it was even used as the train crew's office, and it was also coupled on the back end of freight trains it served when it worked on the railroads it was used by many years ago. Then in 1964, the Duluth South Shore and Atlantic Railroad merged into the Soo Line, where the car would eventually enter service. And also, it kept the number. Then in 1974, it was retired and it was donated to the Pioneer Park Historical Complex in Rhinelander, Wisconsin, where it can be seen on display today. In 1991, it was restored by the Northwoods Woodworkers Club, and it was soon looking good as new. Today, it is preserved here at the Pioneer Park Historical Complex in Rhinelander, Wisconsin, where it is today, and also you can visit the interior of the car as well. What you see right behind me is the Flint and Pere Marquette coach. The Flint and Pere Marquette coach was built in 1888 and is a passenger coach. Also, its original number is unknown. Also, this coach was built to be used on 36-inch gauge tracks. This coach was used on the Flint and Pere Marquette Railroad. Then in 1897, it was then sold to the Thunder Lake Lumber Company, and it was used mainly in excursion trains since the narrow gauge never had regular passenger service. After 1919, Jack Malera had it converted into a business car equipped with 2 double bunks and a kitchen with refrigerator. The observation end contained a table and chairs made by Wausau Novelty Company, which stamped the invoice, liquor and poker chip proof. Veneer paneling was used throughout the car. At the end of operations, the car was left parked on a length of track alongside the former Thunder Lake store, where for some time it served as a home for former Woods Superintendent Jack Bell, covered with a coat of white paint, which has hidden the original red paint with the Flint and Pere Marquette headboard, and it remained in use as a cottage at the location until 1960. Then, 2 months after Jack Bell passed away, the car was donated by his family to the Pioneer Park Historical Complex in Rhinelander, Wisconsin, where it is today. What you see right behind me is the logging car. This logging car was built around like the mid or late 1800s or 1900s and is a logging car. This logging car was used on the Thunder Lake Lumber Company, and also it was built to be on narrow gauge tracks and also carried logs when being used on logging trains on the logging railroad as well. Then later on, it was retired and was put in this spot at the Pioneer Park Historical Complex in Rhinelander, Wisconsin. Then, sometime between 2005 and 2015, it had the wood that holds the logs while transferred to be replaced, and the project took a while. And finally, it looked the way it looked before, and still seen on display here where it is today. What you see right behind me is Thunder Lake Logging Company 5. Thunder Lake Lumber Company 5 was built by Baldwin in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania in 1925 and is the 585 30th steam locomotive built by that factory and is a 280 consolidation type steam locomotive. This locomotive was built as a replacement for Thunder Lake Lumber Company Shay 10 and was used for hauling logs on the Thunder Lake Lumber Company in Rhinelander, Wisconsin. When the Thunder Lake ceased operations in 1941, this locomotive was then sold to locomotive rebuilder/reseller Birmingham Rail and Locomotive, who almost immediately found a buyer for it in the American Smelting and Refining Company, and it was then sold to the Ferrocarril Mineral del Chihuahua in Chihuahua, Mexico, where it would be renumbered 7, and it worked in the mines of Chihuahua, Mexico as well. Then the locomotive was retired, and in 1972 it was donated to the Colorado Railroad Museum in Golden, Colorado, where it spent years being on display. Then in 1973 the museum traded this locomotive for Denver Leadville and Gunnison 280 number 191 to the Then the museum traded this locomotive to the Pioneer Park Historical Complex in Rhinelander, Wisconsin in 1973 for Denver Leadville and Gunnison Steam Engine 191. Then this locomotive got moved here for display. Then about 2019 it was beginning to be cosmetically restored, and it had ongoing cosmetic restoration to be done on it, so it was sandblasted and would eventually get repainted. In 2020, the tracks it was standing on was sinking to the ground, so the foundation had to be stabilized. So cranes lifted the locomotive and tender from the spot to a temporary spot until the foundation was complete, and it was back on the spot about 2021. Then the headlight would eventually get put back on. Today it can be found here on display at the Pioneer Park Historical Complex in Rhinelander, Wisconsin, where it is today. And also you can even ring the locomotive's bell, but you'll need to stand on the ground to do that though. And that's how it's done. You can see right here, this is a turntable that's been here for years, and I think this had something to do with the logging industry all those years ago. But now here it is today at the Pioneer Park Historical Complex in Rhinelander, and also it's got nothing underneath but just a gap underneath these tracks. And also these axles on the wheels that meet up with the middle can be seen clearly. Or I think it was a hand push turntable, or looks kind of unusual to me, but yeah. Okay, you can see behind me, here's a bridge that may either have been built new for the museum, or it might have been used during a logging company or some railroad. And this platform right here, you could get a good view at it. And here's this bridge today that's next to that street and just behind these trees. And it appears this platform was made in 2001. And yeah, what you see right behind me is the Soo Line Rhinelander Depot. The Soo Line Rhinelander Depot was built in either the mid or late 1800s or early 1900s. Also, it was used for the Minneapolis, St. Paul, and Sault Ste. Marie Railroad, Soo Line for short, and served for passenger service on that railroad many years ago whenever this line was served by the Soo Line for passenger service, and passengers would arrive on a train into Rhinelander from somewhere and board a train going somewhere as well. Then this depot was retired and was relocated from the tracks it was next to and was moved to the Pioneer Park in Rhinelander, Wisconsin, and it was moved by truck to this spot, and it was soon put on its final resting spot. Also, it was put on top of a foundation that appears to be a basement, and a staircase was put into the building where people have access to go downstairs to the model railroad display, and the other railroad artifacts can also be found mostly on the main floor of the depot as well. Okay, I'm going to show you all the train exhibits they have inside the depot, so I'll get behind the camera and show you around, so here we go. Okay, here we go into the museum. This would have been the waiting room, and this staircase is not original, as you can tell, because they built this ever since it got here. So that staircase leads to the model railroad display in the basement. And look at this diorama on the wall. Look at all these cool things they have on the wall of the history of trains around the state and elsewhere. Here's a Velocipede. That's in this corner right here. That's a 1385, which belongs to the Mid-Continent Railway Museum in North Freedom. Let's go into the ticket office and look at all these mannequins looking like how people would have done all this back then. And here's a display case. Okay, I'm going to show you all the model railroad display in the depot, but to see it, we're going to go down these stairs right here. So I'll get behind the camera and show you around. So here we go. Okay, as we make our way downstairs, look at all these lanterns and pictures on this wall, as well as these builder plates right here. So we'll just carefully go down the stairs, watch our steps so we don't trip or get hurt. Here's the entrance to the model. Now as we enter, you may look at all these picture frames on the wall, and in this glass case. Pretty amazing, isn't it? And that on the wall is a backdrop, and here's the HO scale model railroad. I can try to, I don't know if I can get back there, probably not, but yeah. And here's a model train display. This is a model of the Chicago Northwestern passenger train, and this is something we can I think this is usually for kids, but I suppose I could use this platform to give you guys all a good view. Isn't this well detailed or what? I wonder what town this is modeled after. It has a lot of detailing. Oh yeah, to run it you have to put 4 quarters in, it looks like. Yeah, I like how well detailed they have this set up. It's pretty cool. Okay, this is a speeder that was once used by the Chicago Northwestern Railroad, and it's on display in this shed. You probably can't see it behind this one, but there's another speeder, but let's look at it. Or it's, yeah, I think it's a Fairmount speeder, and I think that one was also used by the railroad as well. But here, this one is preserved here at the Pioneer Park Historic Complex in Rhinelander, Wisconsin, and I think this one might have been built by Fairmount as well. Also, there it is if you didn't get a good view at it. Okay, you can see up above me is a signal hand that was used by the railroad all those years ago. Also, there's a possibility it may have been used by the Chicago Northwestern all those years ago, and it may be possible it was on this pole before, but I'm not sure. But although the light behind it is much modern than this one, and also it would have been going down to whichever light would indicate whether to go or stop or slow down, and now here it is today. Okay, you can see above me, that's a signal light that was probably used by the Soo Line or the Chicago Northwestern Railroad all those years ago. And this may not be the original pole it was on, but it would then eventually end up here at the Pioneer Park Historical Complex in Rhinelander, Wisconsin, where it is today. Well, I hope you all enjoyed learning about trains with me today in Matthew Lapp Train Guy segment show. Also, I hope to see you all again in the next segment. And if you didn't subscribe to my channel yet, the subscribe button is just down below the video screen. And if you didn't give the Facebook page a like yet, here's where you want to go. And if you didn't give the Instagram page a follow yet, here's where you want to go as well. Also, be sure to get your merch at teesprings.com. I'll have the link in the description box below, along with the Facebook and Instagram pages. And remember to subscribe to the Train Guy. So this is Matthew Lapp, host of Matthew Lapp Train Guy segment show. Sign out until next time. All aboard!